Welcome back to codezing.org. Got another level 1 project. This one's called Lists. You can find it at www.codezing.org/lists, or you can just navigate through the site. Go to codezing.org, level 1, and somewhere in here, lists of lists. And today we're going to do a little bit more kind of fundamentals of computer programming, especially in Python. Lists are very important. It's these square brackets. And we're just going to create some different lists with this one. So let's input some text, numbers, and we'll do a starting number and an ending number. And submit, and what does it do? I took all of that text I entered and broke it into a list, and then it created a list of number that started with my number and ended with my number less 1. So I put in 33, it went to 32. Here's a list containing both lists. So this, if you can see, is what they call a nested list. There's two lists. So there's this first list, and then a comma, and then the second list. And that whole thing is within a list. So you can see double brackets here and double brackets here. So there's two lists within this bigger list, and they call that a nested list. You can see an example over here of another nested list. And so lists, when I think of a list, I think of almost kind of like a box or suitcase, or, you can put anything inside of it. You can put numbers, you can put text, you can put Boolean variables, true or false. It can hold anything you want, and you just separate each item by a comma. So it can even hold lists of lists, and they're separated by a comma. So each item within a list is separated by a comma, and then if you want a list within a second list, you separate that by a comma. And these are a great way to hold and store information, and for Python to then work on those lists. So in some of the other projects, it'll sort or capitalize or reverse or look through lists or create lists or pick random items from lists. So they're super important. So this one is to give a little more detail on exactly what's up with lists. If we go down to the bottom, you can click and get the code. Let's copy that and head over to Spider, our editor here, and we'll paste that in. See, there's no imports or anything. This is pretty basic stuff we're trying to do here. Just going to add some spacing so we can see through it a little easier. Why don't we just run it and see what it does first. Please enter some text or numbers. Please enter a starting number. Please enter an ending number. And there it is. So it made that list, and it made a list of the first stuff I typed in. You can see that these don't have the quotes around them, so these are actually numbers. They'd be integers, and this is a string. So you can always tell a string in Python, it's within the quotes. Numbers and other variables are not. So that's all this does. It's pretty simple, but it's really important to kind of dig in and see what's happening here. So the first thing it does is asks, please enter some text or numbers, and then this /n is just a new line. So you can see it let me enter it on the new line instead of entering it over here. So it's all this /n just creates a new line. Then it's going to take that variable and it's going to do list with the brackets around the variable. And you can see what that did, right? It took this text variable that I entered, this LKJSDAF, and this list function, broke out each item into a list component. So it took the L and made it part of a list, and the K, it almost kind of like unpacked it into separate items in a list. So we printed out, here's the list I created, and the new list that I made here. Kind of cool. Now let's make a list of numbers. So our starting number is please input a starting number, and then again the new line shortcut there, and then around that is the integer type. So when you use input, it's going to receive it, and Python is going to default to making that a string, but I want it to be a number. I want it to be an integer. So that's what the int that's kind of wrapping around this input is doing, converting start number variable to an integer. This is just printing a blank line in here, a blank line. And then we're going to ask for the ending number, same thing, converting that to an integer as well. And then number range list is a variable that is, it's kind of doing two things here. So one, it's creating a range. So it's creating a range from the start number to the end number, and then it's converting that to a list. So when you use just range, it actually creates kind of a Python a pointer, not really the actual range itself, but by dropping that into a list, it's going to make this list here. And you can see that it goes up to, but not including the last number. So I put in 33 and it went up to 32. So it doesn't include the last number, it goes up to, but doesn't include. And so you might want to add just like a +1, the end number +1, and that way it'll go up to, the user expects it to be through 33. If we do end number +1, it'll get all the way to 33. And then it just prints out that range. To make a list of lists, we could do that like the website does. So if I do, let's see, nested list is my variable name, and I am going to create a new list, not a dictionary, a new list, and I'm going to put, what's my top variable here? Text variable list. I'm going to drop that in, and then I'm going to put a comma, and I want my next list to go after that. And now if I do print, not nested list, let's see what that was. So enter some text and enter a starting number. And you can see down here it created now a nested list. So we made a list of lists by taking this variable, which is already a list, and then a comma, and then the next variable, which is already a list. So I'm putting these two lists within another list. So we've got a nested list now. You can also do looping to access items in a list. If you just wanted a particular number, maybe I can show you that. So if I do print text variable list, and I'm going to put curly brackets here. I'm not making a new list because this is right by the variable name. So text variable list with the brackets, and then I'll put 0. And let's do a few of those. Whoops. Do that. There. And I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's see what that does. Enter some text number, and we can see that it printed the nested list like we wanted, and then it's printing A. So we printed text variable list with the square brackets and then a 0, and so A is the first item in the list, and lists actually start with the 0th item, which is a little hard to get used to, but once you're used to it, it's not a big deal. But the first item in the list is always numbered 0, and then 1, 2, 3 to the end. So you can see it did A, then S, then D, then F, then S, and those are the numbers of the items in the list. So that's how, let's say you make a big list and you want to access a particular item, then you can access them by putting the name of the list, the square brackets, and then within the square brackets, the value of the item that you want. So alright, a little bit more detail on lists, but feel free to mess around, to learn more about lists, try to make more complex lists, try to access the items in the lists. Maybe you can make like a for loop in the list. So if you do for item in nested list, print item. So item is just a kind of a random name. I always use like item. Some people use X or whatever. But this is going to loop through each item in the nested list, and it's going to print those items. Let's see. Why don't we just do here? And then, what am I doing? 125. Okay, there we go. So it created our nested list, and then what this does for item in nested list, it's going to print each item. So it's going to take the first item, which is this list, and print it, and then the next item, which is this list, and print that. So there's one item and the second item. You can also do like a double for loop, and then for item in for item 2 in item, print item 2. What do you think that's going to do? Maybe pause the video and think about it for a second. Thinking about what did it do when we just the first item. What do you think it's going to print out this time? Take a little break, think it through. Alright, hopefully you figured it out and you paused the video and you thought through all that. If not, you'll get to see now what it does. Alright, so we'll enter our text and we'll enter our numbers 1 to, let's say, 21. And I think item 2, oh, item underscore 2. Whoopsies. Alright, text. And number 1 through 22, fine. Whoa, what did it do? Alright, so we entered our ending number. It created our list of numbers there. It created our nested list, our two lists, the text and the numbers. And then now it's for item, actually it printed these first, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to print the ASDW, ASDWE. So those are actually part of this piece. And then for item in nested list, for item 2 in item, print item 2. So it is going to take each item. So for item in nested list is going to grab this. And then for item 2 in item. So now that this equals item, it is going to look through each one and say this is item 2, then this is item 2, and item 2, and item 2. And it's going to loop through ASDWER, which it did, ASWER. And then that loop is complete, this inner loop. It's going to go to the outer loop and pick the next item in the list. And that next item is now going to get looped through. Right, so now it takes the second item, it drops to the second loop, and now it's going to loop through that. And so it prints out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 22. So, play around with it. Add some if statements. You could do a lot of cool stuff, I think, with loops and lists. And obviously that's what the majority of the games that are on the site are, use some form of lists and loops and if statements to create all the, tic-tac-toe and guess the number and all the cool stuff. So, fool around with it, change stuff, see what breaks it and see what makes it work and see if you can make even longer loops, make it loop through multiple times. But have fun with it. If you come up with something cool, feel free to email it to info@codezing.org and I'll give you credit on the site, and that'll help other people learn more. But hopefully this helped you learn a lot about lists. They're super important. But have fun. You can add any questions to the comments on the video, or you can email us and we'll take a look at your questions as well. So have fun playing around with lists.